congratulations on getting out another book. It's a lot of work, I know. You've been working on this for quite a while. I mean, researching. When did you well, we'll talk about it, but I want to know when you first got the idea of focusing on this. But anyway, it's really...
No, I'm thinking exactly, trying to locate it.
Anyway, it's really good to see you, like always. And welcome very much to Conversations. Pleasure to welcome to the program an old friend of myself and Conversations, and I would say the world, and that being Lenni Brenner. He's the author of many books that have been helping to illuminate the human condition over the years. And he has a new book that's just out now, and he's put a considerable amount of time and attention to it. We want to show you what it looks like. It's going to be, I guess, out in the shelves just about when this program airs or soon thereafter. And it's called Jefferson and Madison. Why don't you give us the subtitle?
Jefferson and Madison on Separation of Church and State, Writings on Religion and Secularism.
Okay, very good. That's the way it looks, and we're going to be talking about this book. And Lenni, it's good to see you again, like always.
Hi.
Yeah.
Well, let me put it this way. I'm very pleased with the book. I am not pleased that George Bush is the President of the United States. I voted for Nader, but he
got a lot of company, I think.
Yeah, he has made the question of the relationship between religion and government a #1 issue for all Americans by his up on the T-shirt. He wants to integrate religion and the state. For example, religious organizations should be allowed to set up drug clinics and homes for wayward girls and boys, and teaching, let's say, some trade or something like that. So all it's done on church premises,
faith-based
initiatives and so on and so forth.
And it may be, if I may, it'd be not only the United States, but that's a large issue in the whole wide world.
In the whole world is the relationship between
fundamentalism,
government and religion, definitely. What makes it very key in the United States, aside from the power of the United States in the world, and as you brought out, is the fact that the separation of church and state first took place in the United States as part of the American Revolution. Tom Jefferson, when he died, he had on his tomb only 3 things: author of the Declaration of Independence, author of the bill separating church and state in Virginia, and father of the University of Virginia, and not a word about him being President of the United States and so on and so forth. Just those 3 things, that's what he wanted.
That's on his tombstone.
It's on his tombstone by his instructions, and he says, but not a word more. You know,
that's really interesting, particularly that second.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay?
right, yeah.
Because what happened is that Jefferson got into politics in the House of Burgesses in Virginia as a youth. His first bill was to try to permit easier freeing of slaves. That got nowheres, okay? And he went on to working on separating church and state. The official church in Virginia was the Church of England, and literally the Church of England, in that it was run from London, okay? And they persecuted Baptists, among others. And Jefferson and Madison remembered the persecution of Baptists in their neighborhoods when they were young, all right? So they worked together. Well, let me put it this way. Jefferson was born in 1843. Madison was born in 1743. And Madison in 1751.
Okay.
So there's, you know, 8-year difference. So Jefferson is the one that began the fight for separating church and state in Virginia. His main enemy, by the way, was the famous orator Patrick Henry, who was absolutely committed to the connection between church and state.
I
Okay.
didn't realize that.
Yes.
Yeah,
All
give me
right.
liberty and
Yes,
give me,
yes.
yeah,
Now,
right.
he was
Yeah.
you know, famous for his fight against the British,
Uh,
but as far as religion was concerned, he was the enemy, and at one point Jefferson wishes him dead.
no, really?
Yes,
That's strong.
okay,
It was that
that's
strong
true.
a feeling. And it goes back, seems to me it might go back in England, even to where you had Henry VIII and you had that
No, it was
flare up
based
about
on
the
their-
church and state
Well,
thing.
let
I
me
mean,
let me
you
put
know,
it
the
this way.
church
I
and
mean,
secular power.
Let me
yeah.
put it this way.
Oh.
Jefferson and Madison were deep students of British history. But in addition to that, both of them spoke Greek and Latin.
Really?
Okay? Madison spoke Hebrew as well. Now, by the way, since I'm introducing Madison at this
Yeah,
point,
right.
let me do this.
Yeah, right. Let me
Everybody has a picture
Of Jefferson.
Of Jefferson in
Yeah.
their pocket.
Now
in
you
their
want
wallet.
to show these
This
pictures
is
of
young,
Madison.
young Madison.
Okay, let's just give them time to focus in on this. This is a picture of young Madison, you say.
All right, about the time of the Constitution of the United States, which he is known as the father of the Constitution.
Rightly so, you think?
Oh, rightly so,
Okay.
because he basically, if anybody managed the Constitutional Convention, he did.
Uh-huh.
All right.
And you have another one
Yes.
here, I
now
think,
this
of the
is
man.
a life mask.
This is a life mask, okay.
Okay,
I'll
of
get a
him
Mr.
in his
Madison.
old age. He died in 1836.
Okay.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
And someone had just invented life masks,
Mm-hmm.
and it was quite painful for these elderly guys to sit there with all this, plaster Paris and rags.
Yeah.
It's basically still done that way.
Still done that. Poor
Yeah,
Hollywood stars.
with straws up their nose.
Okay, yeah. We'll put
that
this
kind
away
of
now.
stuff.
Be careful of that.
All
because
right,
that's
there you
that's
go.
a delicate
Okay.
thing. Yeah, okay, yeah.
All right.
But
Now,
they were both classical scholars.
Oh, yes.
Was that the characteristic of the founding fathers generally? They would
well,
speak
let
Latin
me,
and Greek and
well,
were
yes and
scholars,
no.
or-
Yes and no. In other words, George Washington was what you call an outdoors man.
Okay.
All right. I mean, he was
Surveyor.
a surveyor and
Yeah,
so on. No,
yeah.
he did not speak Greek and Latin,
Mhm.
and that's my knowledge.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think Franklin did, etc. But Jefferson went to William and Mary, and Madison went to what is now Princeton. Okay. And both of them had theological schools, and since Greek is very important for the Bible,
Sure.
all right, and Madison was sickly as a young man. Now, he lived to a ripe old age, say the least, but he was sickly and thought he would die and so on and so forth. So he got into religion and studying the Bible hard and got off into Hebrew, all right?
That was part of the curriculum of an educated person.
Yes.
And was
Because
theology.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Let me put it this way. On a state level, the only state that, or at least city that had no, well, state, yes, by 1776, New York, I think parts of New Jersey, okay? Pennsylvania was very tolerant because it was the Quakers, but there was still religion all over the place, et cetera, et cetera. And most of the others had some kind of religion, to the degree that Massachusetts continued to have a state religion until 1833.
So late.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, to our ears it sounds absurd. It's like Bronx County having, an official religion until, or something like that.
Yeah.
In other words, we don't identify the notion of God with a territory, except, of course, patriotic Americans on Election Day, or God bless America, and,
Yeah,
all
it's
that.
not a small matter because
Yeah.
mankind has had these spiritual traditions that they've tried to get a sense of absolute values. A lot of values, morality,
Yeah.
ethics have come out of a religious
Well,
notion.
I mean,
and that there was a close tie between the ecclesiastical understanding, as it were, and the way we're going to organize our society. That was part of the human organization for a very
Let's
long
put it
period
this
of
way.
time, and
The-
still
the-
is in much of the world, or
the
in much of
saying-
people's
The
consciousness.
saying with regards to America is that when the founding fathers, when the colonists came here, first they fell upon their knees, then they fell upon the Indians.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
They came over here religious to a degree that makes Pat Robertson look like an atheist.
Well, it's good to understand that
Yeah.
context,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
maybe also to apply it to much of the world, perhaps. I don't know.
Well,
No.
now, the key thing is that these two guys broke out of it, okay? They separated church and state in Virginia, and to the, let me tell you, to the degree that they separated it. When they separated the Anglican Church, they prohibited ministers from running for office. That was part of Virginia's Constitution for about 10 years. And then they decided, or Jefferson at least said, hey, it looks like all the ministers have calmed down. You know, they're no longer interested in running to get the Anglican Church back as the official religion. So, like, there's no reason why they can't run for office as individuals as long as they're not trying to integrate church and state.
Help me out here a little, then. And was this part of the broader, what, like maybe Scottish or English Enlightenment that we were getting out of this church-based notions of social organization? And was it the Scottish Enlightenment that informed the Founding Fathers, including particularly most significant Madison and Jefferson?
Well,
Was
Madison
it
in particular, because the Scottish tradition was deeper at Princeton.
Yeah.
The key thing about Jefferson, as far as I can see, is that Jefferson broke with traditional Christianity on his own as a youth. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You got a couple of things. You
Yeah. Let me. I want to read you something that he wrote. Okay.
This is Jefferson.
Yes. Okay. This is his disagreements with the Bible. All right. This is from a letter he wrote in 1819 to a guy named William Short. Okay. But the greatest of all reformers of the depraved religion of his own country was Jesus of Nazareth, abstracting what is really his from the rubbish in which it is buried, easily distinguished by its luster from the dross of his biographers, and as separable from that as the diamond from the dunghill, we have the outlines of a system of the most sublime morality which has ever fallen from the lips of man. Okay? And then he goes, the establishment of the innocent and genuine character of this benevolent moralist and rescuing it from the imputation of imposture, which has resulted from misconstructions of his words by his pretended votaries, is a most desirable object, and one in which an author named Priestley has successfully devoted his labors in learning. Okay, and then he lists, this is Jefferson, the artificial systems, that's his word, okay? Example, the Immaculate Conception of Jesus, his deification, the creation of the world by him, his miraculous powers, his resurrection and visible ascension, his corporal presence in the Eucharist, the Trinity, original sin, atonement, regeneration, election, orders of hierarchy and company, invented by ultra-Christian sects, unauthorized by a single word uttered by him.
And that was the basis of his Jefferson
This is
Bible?
Jefferson.
Yeah, talk about that Jefferson
now,
Bible.
Here's what Jefferson did.
Yeah.
He did it twice.
This is prior to the Constitution?
No, this is after.
Oh, after, okay.
Jefferson becomes President of the United States. He's elected in 1800. He's in office 1801. Okay. 1804, he has a little time left over after the work day, and he takes a razor to his Bible, and he cuts through...
Which Bible would that have been he's applying his razor to?
That one would be the New Testament. In the standard, or King James.
King James, okay.
King James, and he's cutting through it, and he pastes it up, okay? He cuts out all the miracles, etc., all the resurrection, etc. Like it ends.
All the obiter dictum on the part of the priestly class.
In other words, Jesus is crucified.
Class,
he is buried in the tomb. They put a stone in front of the tomb, and that's it. Okay? Now, that was lost. It was in his papers when he died, but it was lost. However, we are in luck because he did it again.
Now, excuse me, that which you mean his
cut out, pasted up version of what was legitimately in the four Gospels.
And these were the words of Jesus himself?
Words of Jesus.
As it was reported. Yeah.
As reported, but with none of the miracles. He's like, and he dies. He doesn't rise from the dead. He dies.
Some people would find that interesting that is the
case. All right,
case.
now, wait, hold on. Let me finish the logic of this thing. In his old age, in 1819, in the winter of 1819, 1820, he did it again. That we have, exactly. And that he did even more systematically. He did it with the New Testament in the King James Version, with a Latin version, a Greek version, and a French version. All right? And he cut out again all the miracles, etc., all the, supernaturalism. He's not the Son of God. Okay? And that we have, and that is in the complete text of what is called the Jefferson Bible.
That's in your book,
That's
the complete
in my
text.
Book. Complete text.
It must have been somewhat
Bible.
abridged from what people were used to reading as the Bible.
Well, let me put it this way: he creates a philosopher, okay, who Jesus is a philosopher who believes in God, okay, but that's it. Oh, he believes in a hereafter. He preaches a hereafter.
That's kind of a big caveat.
Okay. However, what our man says...
You talk our man Jefferson or
yes,
Madison?
I'm talking now Jefferson, all right? This is a wonderful piece by him.
Okay.
He's talking about his disagreements with Jesus, because you see, Jesus is a philosopher, and
like Plato or Socrates.
Like Plato's and Socrates, so you agree with them on some things and you disagree with them on other things. He's not the Messiah or anything like that.
Well,
okay,
that's a big jump. From
all right. So now here is Tom Jefferson on him and Jesus. Okay. It is not to be understood that I am with him in all of his doctrines. I am a materialist. He takes the side of spiritualism. He preaches the efficacy of repentance towards forgiveness of sin. I require a counterpoise of good works to redeem it in company. It is the innocence of his character, the purity and sublimity of his moral precepts, the eloquence of his inculcations, the beauties of the apollos in which he conveys them that I so much admire. So much indeed needing indulgence to Eastern hyperbole. Okay. Hyperbolism.
Hyperbolism.
We are talking Jefferson.
We got to get our ism.
He has it
correct.
Right. See? Okay. All right. Now, he's very clear. He is a materialist, and he believes in that either God is material, okay, or else there's no God. Okay.
Could I ask you something while you're looking for that
yes.
further quote? They had this, many of those people, Washington and others, were what are called deists. Where does that fit in? Who were the deists? What was the deist notion of things sacred?
All right. A deist basically believes in a God who, the classic image is the great clockmaker. He creates the world, he winds it up, and it runs, and he goes out and has a beer, right?
A beer.
It comes back. He doesn't come back in. But basically, the universe is created by a deity, a God. All right. I would define Jefferson as. Right. Let me put it this way. Some Unitarians would define themselves as Christian deists. Okay. At the end of his life, Jefferson said that he's felt closest to Unitarianism. But he never joined them. Okay, and part of it was that he always insisted that Jesus was a philosopher, not a supernatural being, not inspired by God, or no more than Socrates or Jefferson, or you and I.
Right.
Whereas,
that could be in keeping with a lot of scientific thinking about the evolution of human affairs.
Well, he's
consciousness.
very, I mean, yes, let me put it this way.
So with the Enlightenment, it's growing.
Yes, let me put it this way. Jefferson was the American ambassador to France from 1785 to actually left in like 1789, 90, you know, the winter of 79, 90.
Whole bunch of shading going on in 1789,
Let me put it this way. I have many of the things that he discusses with regards to the French Revolution. The guy who led the bourgeois guard to storming the French Revolution comes back to his home. Jefferson is there visiting his wife. Now, this is not an affair. This is, you know,
just a social
he is the ambassador, et cetera, and they get to talking about the Bastille, which had just fallen.
Right.
Let me put it this way. Basically speaking, I think it's fair to say that he puts it this way, that the people of France, the educated people of France, looked upon America as like the holy place of the world. Because they made a revolution, they had a republic.
Based upon the principles coming out of the American Revolution.
And that he was the walking American Revolution to them. This man was the ambassador to the king. Understand, the king, the bad guy...
That'd be the 16th, right?
Yes. The bad guy was the king who supported the Americans against the bad British king. You understand? It had nothing to do with republicanism. I mean, he supported the king would have supported the devil against the British.
And they had the steam engine now, so an industrial revolution was getting...
Well, the steam engine is
1776.
Just starting.
Yeah, but it's the basis of the industrial revolution and the changing material reality.
Let me put it this way. Jefferson was a working farmer, slaveholder, but a working farmer, and invented various machines and stuff like that. Okay. I mean, he was a major mind by any
no doubt
standards. I mean, that's like, for example, his impact is this: that I accept the notion that he slept with one of his slaves who was related to him. You understand?
Sally something.
Sally Hemings, who was half white, you know, mulatto, and related to him, related to his wife. Okay, I accept that. What I've noticed is that the blacks who claim to be his descendant, they want to be identified with him. They don't go around, they're not the ones wagging a finger at Jefferson for sleeping with their ancestor. They consider him as well their ancestor. In other words,
he is.
Well, he is.
Yeah.
And the point is that there seems to be an inclusiveness of identification with him. And part of the reason for that is precisely that everybody knows that he was in favor of freedom for somebody in an age when nobody was free. The two things that these two guys did, and it's as much Madison as Jefferson, they created the first modern republic. Okay?
It's still a model for much of the world?
Well, it's not only a model, but the point is it is literally the first republic. The only semi-republics of the time were the Doges of Venice, the Switzerland, and Geneva. Okay? And those were aristocratic republics. Okay?
We were coming out of the 700 years of feudal tradition and that sort of thing. And there was a big thing blowing in the wind, Bobby Dylan.
So what these two guys did was they were very anti-clerical, as I say. Now, let me put it this way. Madison doesn't get his razor out to go for the throats of priests, etc., etc. Jefferson got along with every priest he ever met, but hated priesthood. Okay? He was a diplomat. He was a diplomat, all right? So, like, he met the papal nuncio in Paris, okay? The papal nuncio was the representative of the papal states. In Jefferson's mind, the papal states, and in Madison's mind, the papal states were the worst-run government on the planet Earth.
The worst?
The worst.
The worst.
Because that's the complete integration of religion and state.
This is interesting in terms of our times,
all right?
isn't it?
The worst, okay? Nevertheless, 20 years later, he hears news that the papal nuncio is still alive, and he writes him a letter. Oh, I was so worried about you and all the turmoil. I lost contact with you. I miss you, etc., etc. He did even better than that. When he was in France as the American ambassador, he would chill out like once a year by going to a monastery where they had a vow of silence, and he would spend a few days there. And then in France, as the American ambassador to France, he had to worry about prisoners captured by Muslim pirates from Tripoli in Libya.
That was,
right?
the Barbary pilot.
All right, so he went to a monk who was France's agent for buying back French prisoners from Tripoli, and he got him to also buy back the Americans, and he had to, the monk had to explain, I can't charge the same low price for your guys, for Americans, as they do for French, because these guys, the pirates would get wise, and they realize that I'm dealing for you as well, and they'll raise the price. Yeah, these guys are stealing,
well, this is like,
taking hostages, and
like a jobber or something.
Right,
yeah.
But he's so grateful for the man, and he's, now this is a man who absolutely hates the Trinity, and Saint Athanasius, who is the inventor of the Trinity, he hates him, can't stand the man, all right? But he is a manners before morals. I guess that's, the old saying, covers Jefferson. Now, Madison never got off into hating the notion of priesthood, okay? I mean, I got to read you let me get a bad, okay.
A zinger.
A little zinger from Jefferson on priests.
A zinger from the...
Yeah. Okay.
And things were changing, and the times they were changing, and it was a big thing that was developing in terms of, and they have lessons for the modern day era too. Okay. Because
all right, let me.
There are other religious traditions.
Now this is the letter he wrote in 1815 of publishing a book on
religion.
This is
Madison now.
No, this is Jefferson.
It's still Jefferson. Okay.
As I say, Madison never gets into the razor, slashing the throats of priests. Okay. This is Jefferson, 1815, a letter to Charles Clay. Of publishing a book on religion, my dear sir, I never had an idea. I should as soon think of writing for the reformation of Bedlam as for the world of religious sects. Of these there must be 10,000. Every individual of every one of them believes all are wrong but his own.
Yes.
To undertake to bring them all right would be like undertaking single-handed to fell the forests of America.
Right.
I abuse the priests indeed, who have so much abused the pure and holy doctrine of their master, and who have laid me under no obligation of reticence as to the tricks of their trade, the genuine system of Jesus, and the artificial structures they have erected to make them the instruments of wealth, power, and preeminence to themselves, are as distinct things in my view as light and darkness. And while I have classed them with soothsayers and necromancers, I place him among the greatest reformers of morals and scourges of priestcraft that have ever existed. They felt against him as such and have never rested until they silenced him by death. But his heresies against Judaism prevailing in the long run, the priests have tacked about and have rebuilt upon them the temple which he destroyed, as splendid and as profitable and as imposing as that.
Okay, now
there you go.
Yeah, that's some heavy-duty language.
Isn't that something?
But let me ask you something. We're talking a broad stroke sort of thing. We got these religious traditions, and we have different ones. You have Judaism, but then the animus and he's talking about a million different sects or everything. You ever been to a Trotskyite meeting? Well, let's say if you're talking politics, the people, now if we're talking just politics, we're not talking something that is religious or ecclesiastical.
Thank you for
haven't we got that kind of a division that can appear, or scientists? You ever go to a scientist thing about whether mitochondrial is important, and the argumentation or that kind of thing along secular lines? Is there something special about the religious questions that Jefferson and Madison were questioning our republic was questioning, and the world is...
Excellent question.
And can you relate
Yes.
that between the animus, between splinter groups, how many angels can dance on the head of a dialectic interpretation or something, and differentiate it between the religious and the secular-oriented kind of differentiation of human philosophy?
Okay, I get it. I got it. All right. I would divide your question into two categories. You said you use Trotskyists and scientists.
Well,
no.
Okay.
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 Now,
you get it.
With regards to the Trotskyists, amen, brother.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah,
amen.
right. Yeah.
What I am an atheist.
Yeah,
okay?
I know. Yeah.
I very carefully emphasize, though, that I have met, on occasion, I met one Christian fundamentalist who knew, in a rainstorm in Arkansas, and he was a science teacher, and he knew everything there was to know about weather. All right?
Yeah.
I mean, weather, everything is a broad, all-encompassing term.
Rather.
Sir, I mean everything.
Yes, all right. Right.
Everything.
This is in a rainstorm in
a
Arkansas.
rainstorm, all right? And he knew it, all right? On the other hand, I have met, and you have met, as you just pointed out, any number of little Trotskyist secticles who do nothing. Well, I mean, any number.
Yeah, right.
You know, I mean, they're probably the best.
And they will fight to the death. Or you see people arguing about the nuance of a poem.
Probably the best known is as an example of this kind of religious sectarian are the classic Spartacist League.
Okay. Right, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And I would also point out that if Hitler believed that in fighting the Jews he's carrying out the will of God, that Stalin was an atheist. So it is not a question of whether or not there is
fundamentalism.
It is not a question of whether or not atheism or religion is more moral, and I'm using moral in a broad sense of the word.
Oh, no, broad. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Right.
All right. On the other hand, when you're talking about distinguishing the quarrels among scientists, science is different, because if they're arguing over whether the quantum mechanics works in
or
such and such, or the
relative
fields, or something like that.
Yeah.
Now, they accept that one of us is wrong. We'll figure it out. It may not be either one of us that figures it out. Someone else will come along and get the right way. What is distinctive about both religion and political ideology?
You think political is in a religious vein, or in a quote religious commitment to certain ideas?
At the end of the day, everybody in politics has a world view.
Yes, right. Okay,
and it
a
may be, Now, let me put it this way: it may be what they officially say it is, or it may be a cynical lie behind. You know, in other words,
spin.
Well, let me put it this way.
Vernacular.
Let me put it this way. I find, if you ask me, and I don't want to get into a discussion of this, but because it's an endless discussion.
Yeah, but it is relevant to our world now.
But for example, I would say that George Bush is a sincere religious fanatic, whereas I find Kerry to be a calculating, manipulating, I am for this, I am against that, based on what the polls out there tell me is what my guys want.
You don't think his is maybe more of a less fundamentalist notion of recognizing that there are many roads to Mecca or Jerusalem or anywhere else you want to go?
Here's what people didn't catch.
Nuanced.
Here's what they didn't catch in the election. I only caught it because I read now certain religious publications.
Okay.
All right. One of the best is a thing called Christian Century, and it's put out by educated, upper class, you might say, you know, Episcopalian, Presbyterian, mainstream, old-fashioned,
that's getting over
waspy,
that's getting over to Church of England stuff,
okay.
Anglican. Yeah.
All right. And what they reported was that Kerry went out to the African Methodist Episcopal Convention in Indianapolis in the summertime and said to them, yes, I am in favor of faith initiative organizations, etc.
Faith-based
initiatives, because that church is in favor of them, all right? All right? And they, all right, yes, I'm in favor of it. We'll have to appoint a commission with religious figures and with governmental figures to figure out how to do it constitutionally. Okay?
Going back to the work of Mr.
Now,
Jefferson and
there's
Mr.
a problem
Madison.
with that. Appointing a commission to figure out how to integrate faith-based organizations into doing various tests that
Opens
the government
a lot of
does
wounds, doesn't it?
is unconstitutional.
Oh, it's unconstitutional.
All right?
Well,
Just happens to be a little matter that when a president of the United States takes office, he takes an oath. It doesn't have to be on the Bible, but he takes an oath to uphold the Constitution. All right.
so
You
are we
can't do
are
that because let me explain why.
All right.
Let's suppose he picks a commission, all right? A reasonable commission, 20 guys.
Yeah.
Let's say 10 from government, 10 from religion. Which religions is he going to pick to be on that board, and which religions isn't he going to pick to be on the board?
with their 10,000 varieties.
There's 10,000 varieties, but there's only 10 posts.
Yes, right. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you know he's a Catholic, so he's
problem.
going to pick a Catholic, okay? And he's going to pick a Jew,
Gotta
maybe
get a
his
Jew.
brother who
Yeah,
converted,
right,
you know.
right.
And he's going to pick a Muslim, a nice, tame Muslim, you know.
Shiite or Sunni?
Oh, there you go. There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah,
all right? But that Muslim isn't going to be named Louis Farrakhan. No way.
Not the Nation of Islam.
You see,
Barred.
so in other words,
yeah.
basically
Yeah.
speaking,
But
what he proposed, faith-based initiatives produced by a commission, okay, would be unconstitutional because it would be favoring some religious sects over others.
Okay, so we're going to defend
it gives them an
the
imprimatur.
secular-based nature of human
And
organization
let me just pursue
with
Kerry
a
for a minute
religious
more. For a minute more.
commitment to the basic premise of the Constitution.
Let me pursue
Becomes
Kerry for a minute,
religiously-
because Bush is up front on the T-shirt, you know, rips the Constitution, gets up
This
in the
had to
morning.
do with the election returns.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No,
yeah.
no,
Yeah.
let me finish on this. When Michael Newdow got the
Yeah.
Ninth Circuit Court to throw out under guard from the Pledge of Allegiance,
Right.
Kerry was one of the 99 senators who got up to denounce the court. Okay, they did it that day.
The Ninth Circuit?
The Ninth Circuit. Every single senator except the guy from Helms, who was sick.
Well,
Every one of them denounced it. Okay. Now, but here's what happened later. Kerry, of course, appointed his religious representative, you know, the guy in charge of his approach to all the different religions in America. I mean, this is part of his election campaign, all right? A woman named Reverend Patterson, okay? All of a sudden, outrage comes in from a group called the Catholic League here in New York. How do you dare pick Reverend Patterson as your religious representative when she was one of 32 religious figures who supported Michael Newdow in cutting under guard from the Pledge of Allegiance?
the point.
All of a sudden, Reverend Patterson resigns from as being the head of Kerry's religious campaign.
So what's it telling us?
All right? In other words, Kerry is in favor of putting under guard in a school Pledge of Allegiance. That's a government action. All right? And he's in favor of faith-based initiatives. In other words, the Salvation Army gets money for some of its shelters and things like that in New York City from the government of the United States.
So that, yeah.
Okay.
So the thrust of your
So
argument
the-
is...
The thrust of the argument is that both political parties rape the First Amendment, okay? Because we know what Madison had to say about exactly that kind of thing, all right?
And the sentiment of the First Amendment, to the degree that it's been able to become characteristic of human institutions, governmental and so forth, is being raped by political authorities all over the world
But-
in the name of
yes.
special interests.
And
some
in
of
this
them
case,
sacred
what
and
is
some of them
horrible about
secular.
it in America
Yeah.
is that it is being raped in the name of James Madison's Constitution. Now, this is James
Now you're
Madison.
making James Madison and Jefferson and the Constitution Holy Writ.
No.
No, you're not.
However,
Okay,
when we're discussing separation of church and state in
Yeah.
America, they invented the game. So that the rules as to what is allowable and not allowable is defined by the First Amendment.
And that's
it's not an abstraction.
Right,
what should
right,
be the
right.
relationship?
But that's an important principle for human organization.
We understand that,
No,
right?
no, I'm saying
Yeah,
that's
sure.
one of the points you're making,
Yes.
right? And it could have application in a broader world. Everywhere, you're saying.
Everywhere, okay.
Even
but
on Mars,
it's
huh?
particularly
Yeah.
crucial here because it was invented here, all right? Okay, now,
Yeah.
here's the thing. This is a veto message,
I think it's the Scots.
okay?
Well,
This
go
is
ahead.
a veto message from Madison to the House of Representatives. He has vetoed a bill that they passed, okay?
What year this is?
1811.
Okay.
Okay, it's just, in this case I have to say February 21 because he vetoed two bills.
Got it right down to the day.
Yeah, this
All
is
right.
important because
Chapter and verse. Yeah.
This is chapter and verse, okay? Now,
Yeah.
he gives a number of reasons why, all right? What it was, having examined and considered a bill entitled, quote, an act incorporating the Protestant Episcopal Church in the town of Alexandria in the District of Columbia, I now return the bill to the House of Representatives in which it originated with the following objections. Now, he gives 3 or 4 objections that pertain only to that church. So I have the complete text in here, but here I want to quote
But it's the
the
principle.
punchline.
All right, the
All right.
punchline.
Okay. And this is the last
Don't lose it now.
paragraph.
Don't-
This is
don't
the
throw it,
last
don't.
paragraph of the veto.
Now let's do it with feeling, Lenni.
Because the bill vests in the said incorporated church an authority to provide for the support of the poor and the education of poor children of the same, an authority which, being altogether superfluous if the provision is to be the result of pious charity, would be a precedent for giving religious societies as such a legal agency in carrying into effect a public and civil duty.
Faith-based initiative.
There you go.
Yeah, right,
all right.
right, right, yeah,
Now,
right,
I mean,
yeah.
that's it. He is talking exactly about what we would call faith-based initiatives.
Right,
and what
right,
he's
right.
saying is, hey, if they want to take care of the homeless and the junkies and so on, and they do it on their own, Godspeed to them.
But not through the
But they
public
can't
sector.
be doing what we're supposed to be doing
Right.
as an agency of the government of the United States.
Right, and that's a principle that applies, that's an important principle
Well,
for social
now,
human organization.
Now let me put
You're
it this
making
way.
the point.
In legal terms, okay, when you're looking, a judge, Supreme Court judge, any judge, but a Supreme Court judge in particular, is looking at who is the authority to explain what defines separation of church and state. The most important authority is James Madison, because he's the author of the Bill of Rights. He's the author of the First Amendment.
So
and this is him vetoing a bill because it violates separation of church and state.
Mr. Bush is in violation of that with his faith-based
Right on the
initiative?
T-shirt.
Right,
Right on the T-shirt. I mean,
right on the T-shirt. Even.
I'm saying, in other words, you cannot accuse Madison or Jefferson of being obscure in their writing. I mean, when Jefferson says, "I hate the Holy Trinity is monkey chatter and can't understand it," you know exactly what he's saying. And this is very clear.
Now, do we start applying this to other religious faiths? We've got a Judaic, we have a whole Zionist movement based upon certain kinds of Judaic principles in Moses.
Yes.
So we have a Sistani. We have Iraq. We have Islamic fundamentalism and so forth that motivates a whole lot of people. Can we start applying some of these principles that are based out of the American experience? The Republic establishment of the Enlightenment that created the United States as having universalist ideas of the way social organization should be done, and the relationship between social organization of the human society and these spiritual or religious traditions that have application on a planetary scale for all of in a systems way for the planet.
Okay, here we go. This is Tom Jefferson to Mordecai Noah, who's a Jew, and this is 1818. Okay. Your sect, by its suffering, the Jews, your sect, by its suffering, has furnished a remarkable proof of the universal spirit of religious intolerance inherent in every sect disclaimed by all while feeble and practiced by all when in power.
That's great.
Our laws...
Now, who is this? I'm sorry.
Jefferson.
This is Jefferson.
Please, let me finish.
I'm sorry.
Our
That's great.
laws have applied the only antidote to this vice, protecting our religious as they do by civil rights, as they do our civil rights by putting all on an equal footing. All right? Now, what he was saying there, and let's bring it right up to today.
Yes, that would be
okay?
good. Right.
He's talking to Mordecai Noah, a Jew, and he says, look, your sect, when it was persecuted,
Yeah.
Now it's in power in Israel. It's
persecute.
persecuting.
No, it's persecuting. Yeah,
persecuting.
Right.
I mean, I'm saying, in other words, I'm saying, look, we
yeah,
can scroll these guys up. You know,
yeah.
Hey, Tom, hey, Jamie, hey, wait, I'll be right with you. Hold on a second.
Lord
we'll go out and have a
Acton,
brew.
where are you now that we need you?
All right, they're here.
Yeah.
All right. The notion that Tom Jefferson or James Madison could be allied to an Orthodox Jewish state and a Saudi Arabian Muslim state at the same time.
Yeah, right.
At the same time, no
Right,
less.
right,
Not just, you know, okay? Impossible to believe. Impossible. I mean,
It's
can
the
you
theater
imagine?
of the
Can you
absurd.
imagine Tom Jefferson,
Yeah.
Ariel Sharon, Ariel, long time no see. You know, impossible, impossible. And this is a guy who literally, remember what he said? All that happened was that the Jewish priests changed the collar, so to speak, and turned into the Catholic priests. All right? Now, understand, that never happened.
Yeah,
you
right,
understand?
right.
And if you ask me, was he joking or was he carried away?
Now, who are we talking about
Jefferson.
now? Jefferson. Okay, right.
Was he joking or was he carried away?
Right,
you know?
right.
I honestly, I can't
say.
I can't honestly say.
Yeah,
you
right.
know? But
That's in the Akashic record. We can't get it. Yeah, okay, yeah.
But he detested the idea of
absolutism.
priestcraftism, and priestcraftism in power was as bad as you could get on this planet.
Okay.
Okay?
Fundamentalism, political fundamentalism
Any
is not.
kind
If
of
political fundamentalism is as bad as, or worse than, or relates to spiritual fundamentalism,
6 of
in what
one,
way?
half a dozen
You think
of
6
the
of one,
other.
half a dozen
In
the other?
other words,
Okay.
let me put it this way.
So we'd have a separation of
let
power
me
from
let
power.
me put it this way.
Maybe.
One of the arguments that Jefferson makes for why there is a God is that most people have believed in a God. All right? I find that invalid because, in fact, it works the other way around. The fact that most people believed in it is reasonable.
Ambrose Bierce.
Well, let me put it this way. I collect proverbs, and one of my favorites is the fools outnumber the wise in every country in the world. And if you listen to most people, another proverb, if you listen to most people, you will hunt rabbits in the sea.
Or you got mink, and nobody ever went broke, underestimated the intelligence of the American people.
Well, now, all right, now, but actually,
or you could say the world people,
let me say this. Let me because we.
Oh yeah, we've only got about 11 minutes left or so.
Let me.
Sure I can
you see, we were just talking about the ignorance of people. Here's a very key thing, all right? I said before that nobody could recognize a picture of Madison, all right?
Yeah.
The immense majority of Americans have no idea that Jefferson said all these things about priests and Christianity, and that he tossed out the idea of the virgin birth and the Trinity. They have no idea. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now let's go further than that.
Those systems
all right?
of belief are deep rooted.
Well, they're deep rooted. But what I'm saying is, look, I have polls from the New York Times. I mean, you know, absolutely reliable polls. 47% of all Americans believe that God created the world in the last 10,000 years. 57% of all blacks believe that. Half the American people do not know that it takes a year for the Earth to go around the sun. Okay.
They only just let Galileo off the hook.
All right. Now, what I'm getting at is that what we got is extreme mass ignorance of the way the stats break down in the United States now is 25% of all Americans have a bachelor's degree. Okay. The others don't. Okay.
75%.
Yeah. And when you're talking the others, you're talking varying degrees of intelligence and ignorance. And among the most ignorant, among the most, not the only ones, but among the most, are precisely those people that go to church every Sunday and go to the chicken dinner on the Friday, et cetera, et cetera. In other words, that's time that they're not putting their nose in a book on anything else.
Well, there are qualities other than intelligence and so forth, and I wonder if you could make a plea. I mean, one of my favorite lines, let me just say, one of my favorite lines is James Joyce saying, history is a nightmare from which we're attempting to awaken.
Right.
And the thing is, it's not only ignorance in the sense of one person being ignorant and their differences in intelligent ratios and that kind of thing, but also just collectively, the whole human society, we are coming out of an ignorant period where we didn't know. 100 years ago, we didn't know about electricity. We didn't know about neurotransmitters. We don't know about the genome. We're now getting to where we understand things collectively. So the intelligence level should, of what we're beginning to get, or some of the people who are on that cutting edge of that kind of thing, is one thing. But the intelligence level, the ability for us to know things, is becoming greater and greater all the time. And maybe there's some hope in that in terms of awakening from the nightmare of injustice and inappropriate social and religious organization that comes out of history.
Let me develop my thought.
All right.
Okay.
We got about 8 minutes left.
I am very hopeful.
Of the human prospect?
Of the human prospect.
Okay,
now,
good.
Harold, let me develop my thoughts, Harold.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
As I said, 25% of all Americans now have a college degree, and there are millions, about 10 million more people studying for a college degree right now. And this phenomena is being replicated all over the world. What's happening in America, in particular, is that as of either the end of this year or the beginning of next year, the statisticians now say that America will cease to be a Protestant majority country. That is to say, Protestants will be less than 50% of the people. Christians will be about 75% because of the Catholics, but what's happening with Protestantism is that it's going down, and it's going down for two reasons. One, the percentage of Protestants in the country. One is, of course, new immigrants, Hindus, Muslims, etc., Buddhists, etc., etc. But the other key thing, and this was pointed out by Christian Century, which is very reliable on this kind of stats, what's happening is that college kids, Christian college kids, many of them, when they get out of college, are not signing up for a church. They are simply secularized. They run into Chuck Darwin in Chuck Darwin. Charles Darwin. He's been around for a while.
I was thinking of a rock group. I was thinking of a rock group.
Yeah, Charles Darwin.
Chucky Darwin.
Chuck Darwin.
Chucky Darwin. I knew him as Chucky
Darwin. You knew him. You're all right. You remember him. Good drinking guy.
He had Wallace on lead guitar.
The point is they run into them. They run into science, astronomy, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we're now talking where you go to the Museum of Natural History and they say the universe is at least 13.7 billion years old.
Yeah, about that old.
Well, it's probably a little older because the way they count, they estimate it, is how long it takes light to get from the most distant stars to here. And now that we're sending telescopes out into space,
Hubble,
they're getting more and more, well, beyond that. I mean, they're now into all kinds of
That's what I'm saying. We're coming
satellites.
to know. We're waking up, is what I'm saying.
What's simply happening is that there is a gap between the educated and the uneducated that is huge.
Or there may be even a bigger gap.
So let me finish my thought. What I'm seeing is this. This book is designed as a weapon, okay? It is to defend and extend separation of church and state. It is not designed to advance atheism. I think atheism will advance as people read this, but what I am calling for is a united front of atheists and religious people who believe in separation of church and state. And what I found, I was just out in California for the anniversary of the Berkeley Free Speech Movement.
Yeah, right,
and now I'm reading all kinds of religious
still on that team
literature. What I find is now that there are any number of liberal leftist Christians who are saying, hey, wait a minute, George, you stole Jesus from us. Because their picture of Jesus is different from Jefferson's, but what they emphasize is him running with the whip through chasing the money changers out of the temple.
Yeah, right.
All right?
Yeah, right.
And all that stuff about it is easier for a rich man to get, it is easier for a camel to get through an eye of a needle than a rich man to get into heaven.
Yeah.
And a beauty that I found only in the Catholic Bible, not in the Protestant Bible, is lions prey are the wild asses of the desert, so too the poor are ever the feeding ground of the rich. Now,
so it has always been.
Karl Marx wishes he said it.
Yeah.
You know, if he could have said...
Instead of just the opium of the people.
Said that,
yeah.
then people would be walking around, you know, you'd see it on the T-shirts.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Everybody, let's put it this way, as we flee out the door away from organized religion, you have to go back and pluck out the gems along the way.
Yeah, get the gem.
Okay?
Well, we might do that out of the whole human experience. We're coming. It may be, Lenny, that we're coming. We've had all this period. We had a mark. It may be that the institutional assumptions by which the planet is operated out of the American experience and out of this notion it was the Industrial Revolution that made the material realities different. We may be transcending that, and we may have a new order that the world calls for, that our traditional systems, we can pluck some from it, but they are inadequate, as was feudalism to what was coming up at that time. We only got a couple minutes left. 1 minute, 2 minutes.
People are battling right now in the United States over whether or not there should be connection between religion and state. Because
and people
please
are battling.
Let me wind up, if you don't mind, all right? Now, this is Madison. Madison, the author of the Bill of Rights, all right?
Read it like Crazy Louis.
Is the appointment of chaplains to the two houses of Congress consistent with the Constitution and with the pure principle of religious freedom? In strictness, the answer on both points must be in the negative. The Constitution of the U.S. forbids anything like an establishment of a national religion. The law appointing chaplains establishes a religious worship for the national representatives to be performed by ministers of religion elected by a majority of them, and these are to be paid out of the national taxes. Does this not involve the principle of a national establishment applicable to a provision for a religious worship for the constituent as well as for the representative body approved by the majority? Okay?
Yeah.
Better, and the establishment of the chaplainship to Congress is a palpable violation of equal rights as well as constitutional principles.
Important principles here. I'm sorry, we've run out of time. That's a problem. We've run out of time. I want to let you, Lenny, it's so good to see you. Thank you for doing this. Good work. I want to let you see what the book will look like. It's called, again, you read it out, Jefferson and Madison
on separation of church and state. It's their writings on religion and secularism.
Chapter and verse.
Barricade Books.
Barricade Books.
I'm the author, Lenni Brenner.
Okay, thanks,
Lenny. I'm the author. They're the stars.
Right. Oh, they're the stars.
They're the stars.
All right. Okay, fine. Well, we just
in
this all of this about the 17th, 18th century and so forth has relevance to the world today, as we could begin to expand it in terms of the future of the planet as we're moving ahead. Your pleasure has perceptions, Lenni Brenner. Great pleasure. We'll be coming back again tomorrow. Please tune in. And Lenny, once again, thanks again for a really great book. It follows in the train of many great books that you've contributed, and we really thank you for all of that.
I thank you.
We will be back tomorrow to talk about Holy Writ and other kinds of things, political and otherwise. But thank you for viewing. We'll see you tomorrow. So thanks for coming in, Lenny, on a rainy day, and thanks for the book. I'm really looking forward to getting into it in depth. It raises so many questions and that sort of thing. That's heavy duties with a razor, actually cutting out the words and so on. I don't know.
You have to do it with a razor because you can't cut out along the spine easily with a scissors.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I thought about it.
Yeah. You thought about it yourself? Did you try it?
No.